Hi everyone, welcome to TGIF, another Friday, another episode. A buzzword which has caught world's attention is vibe coding. In fact, at the Innovation Hub, we got to spend some time with agent mode in VS Code and vibe our way to building an application. We'll focus on this topic in today's episode. And to speak more of this, it's my pleasure to welcome Shrikant and Shankaran for a short conversation. Welcome to TGIF.
Nice to be here.
Wonderful. So, your first impression on agent mode in VS Code?
Yeah, it's quite, it took me by surprise when I first started working with it.
Yeah.
I mean, all along we have been used to GitHub Copilot chat for all these years, and then you know what to expect. But all of a sudden, it sort of leaps and bounds in what we experienced in the past.
Yeah.
The fact that you'd say something and then it just runs off and then gets things done for you. It makes updates, adds new stuff, and then make the whole thing running. It's quite mind-boggling and very interesting, I would say.
Wonderful. I know you've been coding all these days, but in the last couple of weeks, you basically are not coding, you're just giving instructions, right? Now, quickly, Shrikant, knowing that agent does the magic, right? You don't have to write even a single line of code. But how important is it for developers to know the entirety of the environment, what is it you're building, and the building blocks of your application, and then start vibe coding? So, or another view is you don't need to know anything, you just give instructions, you get an application as an output. So, your take on this?
Yeah, I would look at it this way. So if I'm a rookie developer, okay, I'm new to a particular technology, so probably I'd, I'm still trying to come to grips with that particular technology. So I'll use the comfort of agent mode to ask a very few basic questions, and then comes up with so many options. Okay, so whatever gets recommended already is in terms of best practices and what is recommended in the industry and all that. But still, you're not very clear in terms of how to approach it and how to give those right inputs to it, so that you get a truly a great piece of code. But then it already gives you stuff which is very good, and you're able to get it working. You get the basic level of expertise to build an application, so that's great. But then if you're an experienced developer, you already know that what are the right cues you want to give. For example, I want to build an MVC application using the entity framework and using a database first approach. So when you give those instructions, you just mention these keywords, and then it sort of tags along and then gives you the output magically. So you'll see the difference. So a rookie both already have a lot of things to gain from agent mode. So I think it has something for everyone, I would say.
Wonderful. In fact, the second option where you know what you're building, for example, I want to basically host this application in a container. So I know what I'm building. So I just, instead of worrying about how do I basically, first of all, spin off a Docker container and use Kubernetes to orchestrate, I don't need to worry about that at all. My agent will take care of it. I think that's the blessing in disguise.
That's
correct?
true. Yes.
But would you trust this code to be taken to production before you validate it? What's your take on it? Because when it comes to vibe coding, you're focusing largely on outcome than how it's done. The what part of it is what you basically, that's a magic. Your take on that?
What I would think is, things don't happen in just one shot. It's actually a journey where you start off somewhere, give those right cues, and then it builds on that. So at every stage, there is a sense of validation that I would like to do to make sure that things are on the lines of what I would expect. Okay, for example, I gave them an example of the entity framework using database first approach. I should observe how it is moving and whether it's going the right direction. And then at every stage, probably I'll have some unit tests to run to make sure that so far what I've got, I think it seems to deliver what it should, and then I move on with that. So I think that idea of it's not just taking it at the face for what it's offering, but making sure that indeed it's what is expected is very important. I think it saves a lot of time eventually, because you'll reach a point where you've done some 9-10 steps through the vibe coding. You really say something is awry, okay, or you did something wrong midway, and then you want to retrace back. There are ways to do it, but then it becomes a bit messy. So I'm still getting comfortable with it at this point in time. So I would say this is my experience so far. It's good to take stock at every stage to make sure that you're making the right direction.
Agree with you. In fact, let's look at a quick example, right? For example, you and I were playing with VS Code agent mode this week. Now, as you see on the screen right now, the prompt that I give initially is, I already have my environment set up, which is Python environment. Already installed Flask, but give me a quick hello world Flask application. It beautifully gave me that application because I already set the environment, right? Next, of course, I want a database for applications. I'm trying to build a contract management application. Simple application. In the typical SDLC, I would have probably taken an MVC approach to build it. Multiple files, multiple approaches. It would have taken tons of time to do this. MVC simplified for sure, but here you go. I'm basically giving a command saying, you know what, I have my database already available. Go create these two data tables and insert some dummy data. Boom, done. Next, I'm saying, you know what, I basically display this in a tabular form, right? It gave me beautiful tabular output. Now, next I'm saying, you know what, now I need hyperlinks. When I click on master, I need to take the to details. Contract with master,
right.
Line item details,
right.
Do that. So it beautifully gave me that. Next, I want to have an option to insert new contracts, boom, done. I want delete options, boom, done. I think the magic Srikantan was when we were talking about last week is, you know what, this is not a responsive web application, make it responsive. That's all, right? Otherwise, I had to use React.js and whatnot to make it responsive. One command did the magic for me. And finally, in my view, when we say this is the magic of agent, I said, you know what, this UI doesn't look modern at all. Make it look like a modern web application. That's all, and beautiful application that's came my way in terms of. By the way, this has taken us what, about 8-10 minutes to do it.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
But the question is, I know what I've built, but going back and reflecting on code to ensure aligns with my coding standards, it's probably the best code I can put to production. I think, as you rightly said, every step of this process, if I could validate, I think that's productivity gain.
True.
Also, I'm assured that I have the best code to go to the production.
Sure.
Right?
And in fact, just to supplement what you said, so having looked at the GitHub Copilot chat and then what we have the agentic mode.
Right.
So the chat, I mean, we knew that when we wanted to implement something complex, we asked those questions, it actually came back with those responses.
Correct.
But still, it was a lot of effort to, digest all that and try to put that into practice.
Right.
But now it says, now let me go a step further and let me implement it for you. Okay, so that sort of is really magical, and the fact that it saves you a lot of cumbersome, error-prone developer work that you would typically do. And then what we have is something that can very soon pass unit testing without you having to really struggle your way through all of that.
Right.
So I think saves a lot of time, and then if you know what cues to give, I think the kind of productivity gains that you have is quite immense, is what I think.
Absolutely. I think well said, Srikantan. In fact, for a seasoned developer, this is truly a magic wand.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm shifting from writing lines of code to orchestrating software development.
Exactly.
Right?
I mean, that's very apt.
Yeah. So I think that's a way forward. Thank you so much for time today.
Thanks.
As always. So viewers, I think what you just saw was a short conversation on vibe coding. You saw a short example of how in a matter of 8 minutes we could build an application. I think going forward, life of developer is only going to get better. Going forward, in my personal opinion, each of us, or as developers, you will not write lines of code. You'll eventually move towards orchestrating softwares and building applications. With that, thank you so much for watching this episode. Keep watching TGIF. Have a wonderful Friday. Great weekend ahead. Bye-bye.